Chapter 11. Satan's Bargain.
Satan cast a false revelation on the messenger of God's tongue.
The motley crew that slinked out of Mecca under the cover of darkness included Muhammad's daughter, Ruqayya. Other notables were named Slave to the House, Slave to Ar-Rahman, Slave to the sun god Manaf, and Slave to Allah, and to Allah's daughter Al-Uzza. It was a pagan potpourri.
Tabari. The messenger remained in Mecca, preaching in secret and openly, protected by his uncle Abu Talib.
It was another Islamic first. A secretive prophet was being protected by a 70-year-old pagan.
When the Quraysh saw that they had no means of attacking him physically, they accused him of sorcery, soothsaying, and madness, and of being a poet. They began to keep those away from him whom they feared might listen and follow him.
I have distilled a best of the Meccans list of accusations against Muhammad and his claims from the hundreds that permeate the Quran. For your reading pleasure.
He is a liar and a magician. He is possessed by devils. He is an insane, plagiarizing poet.
The Meccans called him
a lunatic, a far-fetched forger, a fool, a specious pretender, and deceitful. The unbelievers said he is a deceiving sorcerer, turning many gods into one deity.
They saw an ulterior
motive behind the Quran. It is a fabrication. They laughed at the Quran. Allah hasn't sent down anything. You are only speaking lies. This is nothing but pure sorcery. The unbelievers say the Quran is nothing but earlier people's lore. These are fables of antiquity, which he has reinvented. What sort of prophet is this? Why was no angel sent to him? These are only confused dreams. He has invented them. Let him bring a miracle to us, as the earlier prophets did. They said of the prophet, he has forged the Quran. We find him full of folly and a liar to boot.
Rather than preach salvation to his tribe, Muhammad taunted his accusers.
Some of them talk ill of the prophet. For those who offend Allah's apostle, there is a painful punishment. Anyone who opposes Allah and his prophet will abide in hell forever.
In a duet with Allah, Muhammad bellowed, "My critics are
despicable men, contemptible swearers, backbiters. They are feeble scandalmongers."
Carried away in the moment, the God of the Quran said that his creation were
mischief-mongers, faggots, apes, nail-biters, donkeys, pigs, and tongue-twisters.
It was a war of words. The sticks and stones would come later. Muslim apologists insist that the Prophet's warmongering in Medina was a result of the Meccan verbal abuse. But according to the Hadith, it was Muhammad who tongue-lashed first. The Meccan response was measured and reasonable. They sought peace through diplomacy and were ultimately terrorized, plundered, and conquered as a result. Their plight should scream out to us today. The Islam versus pagan contest seldom rose above a war of words in Mecca.
Ishaq and Tabari. The nastiest thing I saw the Quraysh do to the messenger occurred when their nobles assembled in the Hijr,
the standing place in the mosque of the Kaaba.
They discussed Muhammad, saying, "We have never seen the kind of trouble we have endured from this fellow. He has derided our traditional values, declared our way of life foolish, abused and insulted our forefathers, reviled our religion, caused divisions among us, divided the community, and cursed our gods."
Allah was their most revered idol. Saying that Muhammad insulted him is an indictment on Islam. And he couldn't have reviled their religion to any significant degree because he incorporated every aspect of Qusay's scam into Islam. Therefore, the real problem lay elsewhere. This prophet made himself a societal nuisance. He destroyed traditional values, caused divisions among the people, and assailed both the living and the dead.
We have endured a great deal from him. While they were saying this, the apostle walked up and kissed the black stone. Then he performed the circumambulation of the Kaaba. As he did this, some said injurious things about him. I could see from the messenger's face that he had heard them. When he passed a second time, they made similar remarks. When he passed them a third time, the prophet stopped and said, "Hear me, O Quraysh, by him who holds Muhammad's life in his hand, I will bring you slaughter."
The founder of Islam was performing pagan rites, kissing a rock idol, and venerating a rock shrine. He had attacked the traditional values of his people, demeaned their ancestors, and caused division. He had built his religion of submission upon doctrines he had stolen from Qusay, Hanif poetry, and Jewish scripture. And for what? So he could lay claim to Allah's fountain of Qusar, the Kaaba ink? And if you think my summation is too harsh, consider what just happened. After enduring years of hate speech from Muhammad, the Meccans criticized him. They accurately labeled the prophet's religion plagiarized madness and sorcery. In response, the founder of Islam turned to his accusers and said,
"I will bring you slaughter."
Not salvation, not good news, not a wonderful message from a loving God. No, I will bring you slaughter. It was Muhammad's message to the world, and he performed as promised. The Meccans were stunned by this response to their verbal jousting, as we should be today. They were in the presence of a covetous charlatan, and they knew it. Unfortunately, they didn't respond intelligently. They were wary of condemning a religion. They were deluded into thinking that a tyrant could be appeased. As a result, the Meccans would lose everything by accommodating the evil that had grown up in their midst.
Tabari. They were gripped by what he had said. The word he used struck people so that no one could move. It was as though everyone had a bird perched on his head. Even those who had been urging the severest measures against him now spoke in a conciliatory way, using the politest expressions they could muster. They said, "Depart, Abu al-Qasim,"
Muhammad's real name.
"for by Allah you were never violent."
At least he wasn't before he became demon-possessed and poisoned by Islam. Peace is not the absence of war. It is not obtained through accommodation. These men wanted to live in peace, so they capitulated. They strove to understand their menace, to talk nicely to their tormentor, to satiate his demands. They were politically correct and got pummeled for it. Their olive branches of kindness were turned into spears of reprisal. Within a decade or so of this peace initiative, the entire Middle East, from Egypt to India, was stung by the Islamic war machine. Appeasing tyrants is the surest path to war. Neville Chamberlain appeased Adolf Hitler in Munich, using his nicest words. He, like the Meccans, caved in to the madman's demands. The Brits gave the Nazis Czechoslovakia. The deadliest war in human history was the result. Today the world is trumpeting another Land for Peace initiative in hopes of satiating a terrorist regime. But as before, if a nation is sacrificed to a hostile doctrine, if Israel is given up to Islam, the world will erupt in global war. But this time the weapons are so much better, 1 billion people may die. Negotiating with tyrants simply fuels their fanaticism. No matter how much one gives, it is never enough. Evil must never be allowed to fester and grow, even if it's called a religion.